So both your parents were married in England.
Yeah.
And
They came to Canada.
Why did they? Did you ever ask them why they decided where they ended up buying? Or?
I think probably wasn't all that expensive, and he wanted to live. He came from Toronto, which made it look cheaper on Cedar Avenue, and I guess he just found this place, 99 Cedar Avenue, and really it was too an expensive area for us. They must have moved there in around 40, 41, because I know they came just before when the war started, and they left Europe. My father died very early. But as I say, we used that place, my mother did, during the war, after the war, it must have been after the war, say 45, 46, and we used to have the soldiers come in school buses to our property, and my mother would serve tea and cook. She was British. I remember that I would have probably been 5 or 6, and I'd see the soldiers with no legs and soldiers in wheelchairs, and it was a hospital from St. Antibellum. So they would come in buses to our place. I don't know. It's just a sort of volunteer thing that people did in those days to help the wounded soldiers from the war. And we had a big property, and I used to have a goat and rabbits and all kinds of stuff. It was a big problem. You could do that sort of thing then. It was a very nice community. And if you go up that street now, I know that 105 is gone. 99 is still there where I was in 91. So we were 3 big properties in a row. And we were the only ones that had all the soldiers because we had the biggest, I think it's an acre of land, which is a lot. And I don't think they sold any of it. I went to Cedar Park at the bottom of our street. And in my senior years, I went to John Rennie, which was new. I was the first student at John Rennie, the first year. We were the first year that went to John Rennie when John Rennie opened. So I started at the bottom of my street, Cedar Avenue, finished at John Rennie, which was at the top of St. John's. So walked both ways. We didn't have buses in those days. You walked. Certainly in the village, I didn't know anything about the village until the first French Canadian I ever went out with. And it wasn't Juliet, it was another one. And it was kind of frowned on, you know. Worse than being a French Canadian in my day was to be a Catholic. That was even worse. My father, had he lived, he didn't, but had he lived, he would have died if he had known I married a French Canadian Catholic and a cop. Yeah. It would have been a total sin. Point Claire Village was Point Claire Village, and that was strictly French Canadian, and the adults went there for the stores and things, and maybe you got to drive down the village on a Saturday morning, maybe, but only had the Kinsman Park. The Kinsman Park was great. I know the Valois kids were totally different from us, that we didn't hardly ever mix a bit in school, but I always remember because I didn't fit in very well because I was a non-athlete. I was a non-student. I really was a bit useless. So the only thing I fit in with is the bad kids, and the bad kids all came from Valois. You know, all the bad English kids came from. I don't say all English kids in Valois were bad, but the bad ones.
Okay, so you're saying if you were bad,
yeah,
you came from Valois, but not all the Valois kids were bad.
That's what I'm saying.
Okay.
That's what I'm saying. Yeah. When you mix them all, this is teenage years. When you mix them all, I guess the best athletes from Valois would mix with our best. I didn't fit in there. So the only thing that I fit in was the bad kids, and the bad kids were from Valois, and I was dying to be one of those. But of course I wasn't allowed out at night, and these kids, half of them didn't have parents. I wasn't allowed to go out. They were ripping off hubcaps and all kinds of stuff. My parents would have had a stroke. I remember saying one night they were going out Thursday night to steal hubcaps, and Ville Saint Pierre on top of that. I knew it was a bad area, Ville Saint Pierre, I thought it was. I was absolutely scandalized. How the hell am I going to get out? I'm not allowed out except to go to church. And I sold church calendars on a Thursday night. So for all summer long, I take my hat and my church calendar, shove them under a rock at the bottom of a 99 seater, take off this kids, just causing havoc. Come back in, put my hat back on, take my calendars, go back in the house. It was a disaster. I was a complete disaster. Oh yeah. My father used to say that. I remember them having the only argument, they're British, so they don't argue in public, but the only one I ever heard, I heard this discussion with the two of them about me, because I wasn't nearly feminine enough. And I remember hearing my father say to my mother, he's just like your grandfather, whatever, who was apparently a veterinarian on a Norwegian ship in the 1800s. And she said, no, she's just like your old maid sister Mabel, who was a, and that's what they argue, where I came from. I was the disaster.